If you refuse higher truths, nothing can stop you from having troubles. If you accept higher truths, nothing can stop you from higher truths. Nothing can stop you from losing troubles. It does indeed all depend on you. Now, all obstacles receiving healthy impressions, higher healing truths, all obstacles to that exist in a place with which you are extremely familiar. It's called mind. Try that one again. All obstacles and barriers to you finding true life, to getting rid of being furious at what life has handed you, and it's handed you some pretty bad things. All obstacles exist in the mind you are using right now in this room. Look at it from another view. Smile inwardly with great authentic pleasure. All obstacles exist in your own mind. They do not exist anywhere in the time zone starting with you. They are the problems, the obstacles are nowhere in the time itself, but in your mismanaged mind, which mismanages memory and recalls sad things, bad things, exciting things, falsely romantic things, and so clogs up your mind that it can't be set free. Now let's try that one again. There are no obstacles in any person you could turn around and see in this room. No obstacles to your room. No obstacles to your spiritual liberty. There are no obstacles in those people that you will see driving away from here, or that you see in your own. No barriers to you being a true, happy human being at that employment where you'll go to tomorrow. Not a single person or event that you encounter or have encountered can do anything to keep you out of the kingdom of heaven. I hope I have emphasized that long enough for you to remember it, so that the next time you feel like blaming someone, assaulting an event, the next time you feel like calling it something that's stopping me from being happy, you'll catch. And you'll remember this truth, which I gave you at the start, that it is your mind and your presently wrongly operating mind that is the entire, absolute, complete problem. Now I'll tell you why. That's great news. Because you won't have to go out and try to get a feeling of right one. like slandering someone, like being cruel either in thought or word or deed to anyone. You'll have no need for that anymore. You can abolish every rock that you throw that bounces against the wall. What an astonishing, an amazing point of liberation that is. You don't have to do anything to get happiness from any one source of income. You don't have to do any of that anymore. You don't have to induce feelings of pleasure inside yourself. From what little you've heard in these first few minutes of the talk, whenever you feel bad and sad, you can stop exactly where you are, whether you're all alone or with 1,000 other people. No matter what has 1,000 other people. No matter what has upset you, what has made you nervous, made you want to score a point, no matter what unpleasant, punishing feeling you get, you can stop where you are and begin to turn your mind around from an enemy to a friend, as an elementary first friend, because the intellectual center is only one center from which you must up to higher regions of consciousness and purity and happiness. But you now have work to do, even while this talk is proceeding. Because while you have a mind and committing vandalism against you, while you have that part, you also have another part that can agree to truth. You have a part that can agree to be a cosmic cop, a spiritual policeman. It can agree to patrol the boulevards and the alleys of your own mind. And with the alleys of the mind, isn't it? With that powerful flashlight, it can point at all the griefs, all the stubbornnesses, all the hostilities. It can point the flashlight at that, and at that moment, you are now beginning to see the enemy in operation. And believe me, and believe yourself by your own experience, that when you see the light go on while watching television and seeing something that should not be there, because it is sinful, because it is evil, because it is intimidating, because it's trying to make you feel guilty about something. The spotlight of your own rearranged mind can go on to that. And you can understand an astonishingly marvelous idea, which is one part of your intellect, of your mind, to kick out. And I want you to be 10 times as alert, as alive, and energetic as you are. Try to gently sweep out what's been harming you. Even if it comes from the outside, it's your responsibility for taking it inside and receiving it. You're not to take a gentle broom and sweep it out anymore. You'll understand better as you grow grace, grow in spiritual perception, you'll understand better the illustration and figure of speech I'm giving you, and that I order you, I instruct you, I tell you, you're never again to be gentle. You're never again to be gentle with insanity. In mental hospitals, the patient gets too bad, they have to tie him down and put him in a room for both his own sake and for the sake of the other people around. You don't understand that yet, but I'm introducing it to you. Truth is a sword. The spiritual sword of righteousness, translated into spiritual terms, is indeed in the universe, and I want you to increasingly understand this figure of speech so that the next time sickness, insanity, and satanic forces, which have fooled you so long, the next time they put it in appearance, you will smash it. You will hit it with every bit of spiritual righteousness that you can manage to collect at the moment. It won't be much at the start. And I'll tell you why it won't be much. Because you are still afraid. Because you are still afraid of evil. You're afraid of evil people. Yes, you are. You're afraid of what they can do to you, how they might harm your income, how they might harm your income, how they might think badly toward you over something. You are 1,000 times more afraid of darkness than you have been able to admit it so that you can change it. Toughness is a part of your spiritual training, and spiritual and innocent and pure. Easily. I have to put this over in case I gesture too much. See, I was aware of the glass of water, right? It will come to you of itself, casually, nicely, and you'll maybe put your hand up like I did in an exclamation of revelation of a certain point, of a reconciliation of two positions that you've never been able to do before, but now you've brought them together, and now there's unity. Do before, but now you've brought them together, and now there's unity instead of opposition, which is this. You used to think that being nice has something to do with being weak. Yes, you did think that. Reconciliation I'm telling you about, that authentic spirituality, being a conscious man or woman, being aware of yourself and of your passing thoughts, all into it, a sternness, a toughness that has no negativity in it at all, has no badness about it, has no cruelty about it. You will look with amazement at what you used to call being strong. And you'll put the right labels on it. When I thought I was being strong in a certain situation, you're now confessing your sins to heaven, which is good, and to yourself. Which is good, and to yourself. When I gave that talk down at that meeting years ago, yesterday, when I gave that talk, I'd read all the books on how to give a proper speech. Now to drop in a little humor to make them for speech. Now to drop in a little humor to make them laugh now and then. And I forget a lot of those things that book said. There's 1,000 points. How can you remember them all? But you remember a few of them. And you get up and you give that talk. Or if it isn't to a group of people, pity her. And you give the talk. And when it's all over, whether 5 minutes or an hour or two, you congratulate yourself. Yeah, I really wowed him, knocked him in the aisles that time. Terrific, terrific. Ah, that book I read. It gave 50 chapters on how to be a dynamic, forceful, spiritual, great, marvelous, beloved speaker. Shorten the title if you wanted the book. It said, I would be a commander of men and women. I would be strong. Well, after you have studied what we're studying here, one day you're going to be seated at home on a bookshelf, a big bookshelf, at least 500 volumes with the similar titles: How to be Powerful and Effective and Persuasive and Get What You Want at Minimum Work. Oh, I get a better title. Market somewhere. How to Become a Millionaire Working 2 minutes per week. Part-time in 2 minutes, that's as well. Well, you're seated at home on the couch. You're seated at home on the couch and you're looking at all those brightly colored volumes on the wall in front of you, and you're looking them over. This has to happen to you. You're looking at all those books and wondering which one you should take next. You've already got a dozen more coming in the mail, and you can hardly wait for them. Meanwhile, how did I manage to miss the mark of what they were saying? Books. And I still look for day-old bread at the supermarket. You fill in your blank. In other words, I'm not making it. I wonder why. All right. Now you're to remember the talk and the points you've had so far. You're to remember the talk and the points you've had so far, so that you will have the following experience. You'll be sitting there on the couch, all excited about money making or having power over people you think will make you happy, which is a part of your malicious mind. And you'll be looking at all those books on the shelf and wondering which one you should take down next. And all of a sudden, you will remember that one day you read a book, New Life Foundation, and the thought of what you heard at that meeting or reading that book will come to you, and you won't like it. You won't, of all the things you learned here, because you already have your own plans for being happy, and there's 500 helps for you on the shelf. So you're miserable. This can be, it not always is, unfortunately, with people, but this could be the turning point in the life of any man or any woman. If only enemy is the way your mind is now running wild and furious and in dark alleys. If at that point you remember that, because then you can remember, I heard that the problem, I heard I heard that the problem is in my refusal of higher truths and my acceptance of lower truths. I heard that. So maybe, now this is the person who's going to make it. I'm giving you the process by which you'll have to go through in one way or another. I give you an illustration, but it could be different, but the basics are there. I would prefer to look at those 500 books on how to become a success and popular and get elected. I'd rather read those books. But what I heard in that lecture has spoiled it all for me. I'm angry. I want to believe in those, but something happened to me at that talk. I can't believe in them anymore. What's wrong? Believe in them anymore. What's wrong? Now you come to the point where you either choose heaven or hell. This happens to everyone out in the world because the truth is to people. But let's get on with this. At that moment of misery, something else has been added. And I'll tell you what it is. He's seated on his couch, wanting to know which book to read because he wants to double his income in 2 weeks. But then he remembers the truth that he heard. And now I was back and forth in conflict. Should I go get that third book to the left on the top shelf? On the top shelf, that looks good, the bright red cover. Should I get that and plan my future based on what I read in that book, one of my favorites? Or should I wonder why mine? There's no question about it. I've never been in conflict. I love those books. I love practicing them. I like talking about them. I like to recommend them to everyone I can. This is a point in the life of a true seeker, he starts to shake, starts to worry, because he is at the point where he has to make a choice. Listen to this. He has to make a choice between the true world of everlasting life or the book world, the temporary world, which can thrill him until it kills him. Remember, everyone can make a selection. And I'm explaining to you this morning this critical moment which must happen to you if you're ever going to be saved, if you're ever going to be in charge of yourself and therefore in charge of everything. If you're ever going to be in charge of yourself and therefore in charge of everything in the whole world. When you're in charge of yourself, you're in charge of everything in the world. Never mind their inflations. Never mind their taxes. Never mind their bully tactics. Never mind that. It has no control. No effect. Can't hurt you at all. Concentrate its furies and its viciousness on you, and you wouldn't feel a thing. You're not there. You're not there to get hurt. There's no one there to be punished by anything because you're not under the law of punishment and old mind anymore. You're free of that. All right. This man is now at the crisis point which I urge you to get to as fast as you can. You're not there yet, but you're hearing the information. You get the signs, which will show you how to get to it. So that you will be in this story, illustration that I've talked about. You'll be in the place where you don't like being in conflict like this, but you can recognize like this, but you can recognize that you don't like being in conflict. That's important. Because then, for the first time, you can see both sides are the same. And for the first time in your 30, 40, 80 years, you have caught glimpses of heaven and hell at the same split second. You know what they are? I'll tell you what they are. The hell is the conflict it must go through and become conscious of when the Spirit of truth tries to tell you that those books are not going to make you happy. They are not going to give you anything of eternal value. They are not going to give you what your heart wants. Now, when the Spirit of truth is talking to you and telling you that, and you recognize the truth of it with one part of you, that's the heaven part. You recognize the truth. But the other part of you, that's the heaven part. You recognize the truth. But the other part, your own dark, clinging, sticky octopus nature, doesn't want you to hear and go any further than what you've heard from the other part of yourself. It doesn't want you to hear from the other part of yourself. It doesn't want you to turn away from those books, or the books represent the whole world, of course. Don't want you to turn away from this world because, listen to this, the existence, the neurosis, the existence of all those creatures from hell their existence depend on you siding with them, siding with the world. And you're wavering. There's so many thoughts, I have to stay on the main road and not go too far off. But many, many times, so that you understand this, in this experience, if you come to it, if you want to be saved, if you really want to be saved, you will go back and forth, and you'll make, well, let's make that a minimum of 500,000. In which, because you're confused, which serves satanic purposes, you will be afraid to give up and resource and a friend, what you call those books, which again represents the whole world. You'll be afraid of giving them up because you're afraid that you're going to disappear if you do. Afraid that you're going to disappear if you do. That's a lie from hell. See, you have a false nature, a false part of your mind that is trying to keep you being friendly with the books, that doesn't want you to being friendly with the books, that doesn't want you to discover that the books and what they represent. There are good books, of course, but they're trying to prevent you from seeing that something exists. Listen, something exists for you and you that is not in those books. There's a new book. But you don't know that. And you're going to scream out. You're going to scream out, please, quick, show me the new book. Give me something to hang on to while I let go of those books. Absolutely not. The path, this may be a thought you've heard before, but the path to heaven goes straight through hell. That means to heaven goes straight through hell. That means this. I'll explain that to you. It means this. There is a period when you refuse those books, but do not have the book of life yet. There is that you have to travel for a long time. Well, start this morning. Start this morning. You have to travel, because in that dark valley of the soul, in that is the loss at the end to the finding of what is everlasting. But this is the man's first experience. And I'm explaining to you so that you can get this quiet, peaceful toughness that I spoke about. And I'll illustrate it again. Don't you fool around with me. You're saying something very quietly, inwardly, that I'm illustrating as you used to do it outwardly, so you can see how you can change inwardly. Don't you dare ridicule me again. You don't have to say that with words. Your being will say it. Jesus, along with those crumbs and bombs. Oh, see? Did you see what happened to you? I'll explain what happened to you. When I said crumbs and bums, that aroused a certain amount of uneasiness, and guilt in your book self that's still attached to all those books on the wall, which means this. I thought that I was supposed to be nice to people. I never use terms such as calling a man a crumb and a bum. They're unfortunates. They're disadvantaged, and we ought to help them. Those are the words straight from hell. It's one side or the other. You're either on God's side or you're on Satan's side. It is one or the other, and get that through your mind. So that you'll understand what it means. That you'll understand what it means to never compromise with evil anytime, any place. That doesn't mean you can change it. The world doesn't want changing. It wants to drag you down to hell with it. Battle that. You will learn to your enormous relief that the toughness, the uncompromising, the quietness, the power, the wrong part of your mind, all that power comes to you as a gift. And it comes to you as you refuse to listen to the temptation of the dark forces which wants you to go back to those books. It comes to you as you continue to travel the dark valley of the Spirit, and you get a little closer to the far side of the valley. An amazing thing happens. An amazing thing happens to you. Right standing in the supermarket checkout stand. Right in the middle of that busy business conference. There's a dozen of you around the table trying to figure out business problem, either alone or with someone else, maybe a number of people. Right in the middle of that, a thought so astonishing comes to you, which is this. I am here now right in the middle of the noise. I am here now right in the middle of the noisy factory, talking with someone, driving my car. Right in the middle of that, I know something that was never ever in one of those books that I used to read, and I know there never will be. I know, and I know it from myself because I'm knowing it from a different self that I was when I first got that shock, that discomfort of realizing I had to leave this world. What you know is this: no matter where you are, what you're doing, 24 hours a day, all throughout the weeks and months, you know that you live in the higher world. Knowing that, you know there's no one around that business table who can be insulted by the boss for saying, you did awful work. Remember how the boss bawling you out? Find your own similar situation. No matter how the negative, foolish, cruel world assaults you, nothing can touch you, because you're not living on that, on the level of those men crowded around the table using bad language. And they're not even ashamed of a little thing like that. They're not even ashamed of using bad language. See how bad it is? They don't have any conscience that it's wrong to be vulgar. They don't even know that. Which, by the way, which is why it is hopeless for the world. You tell them, please, sir, don't use language like that. Dirty words, please don't use that. It's wrong. It is wrong to use bad words. Words, please don't use that. It's wrong. It is wrong to use bad words. What are you, a saint or something? See? And why, by the way, did he get mad? Do you know why he got mad? I'll tell you why he got mad. Because he knew in his, I'll tell you why he got mad. Because he knew in his heart that using vulgar, crude words is crude and vulgar. He knew it. See, what an extra point that is. See, the reason people get furious when you tell them the truth is because they know you're telling them the truth. Different, haven't we? We have determined, no matter what we're going to lose in that dark valley, no matter what we lose, we'll go as fast as we can to lose as much as we can, as fast as we can. We're understanding what it means to win all. Back to this toughness. I want you to do some extra thought about it when you go out of here. And I want you to be aware of, during this next week, be aware, do not recognize a wrongness when it appears in front of you. And it happens all the time. Any kind of a negative state is wrong. Any kind of a subtle scheme that takes advantage of other people doing the scheme. Anything that appeals to egotism, to sick self-interest. I want you to get the point where you are stunned at the fact that you live in a world that is totally evil. At the fact that you live in a world that is totally evil. The world itself is evil. And everyone is a flock of evil sheep. They're all heading for the same cliff, by the way. So, your recognition, insanity, viciousness of the average person in that world out there, your recognition of it will be one empowering factor by which, and I'm illustrating it physically, by which you put on your spiritual policeman's uniform, so to speak, You've got your weapons and your flashlight. Oh, yes, I'm glad I thought of this one. You have a badge of authority there. And no one, no crook, no murderer, no embezzler, no criminal can ever take that away. You remember that. He can't take it away. That's one thing he can't do. He can't hurt you. He can't hurt you, the spiritual policeman. You know who a crook can easily hurt? Simple. Another crook. Do you know who's in danger of being murdered? A murderer in his heart. A murderer in his heart. Anyway, you have this flashlight. You have the authority of something higher. And when you see that shadow in the alley, or when you see that famous man, that man who's acclaimed as a great helper of mankind, when you see all those people who are symbols of righteousness in this world, you will see through them, even while they're giving talks about loving the world and straightening it out and cooperating with people, the spiritual toughness in you will have gone to the point where it's so 100% that you'll know for a fact what I just said to you, that the sickness and trickery and evil of this world is 1,000 times worse than you think. Now, it is truth itself that is seeing this through you. Therefore, you can have no self-righteousness at all. Self-righteous, you went through that valley of the shadow in which you saw all those crummy, valley of the shadow in which you saw all those crummy things you used to do and say and think, and you were appalled at what you were like. How can you ever be self-righteous again? You can't. All right, our time is coming to an end, but I want to emphasize you knowing enemy is in the refusal of your mind to learn and to understand. The friend and the doorway to everlasting life and everlasting pleasure and freedom and pleasure right in this life here. The doorway to that is in you understanding that there is another part of your mind, tyranny over you that the other side has had. It's called praying to God to make you willing to be willing to follow him and to do his will, not yours and not the will of this world, to do his will. Good morning.